Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder having a look at the Saab B3C. This is a new devblog for updates 1.95 looking at the start of the bomber line for the Swedish. The tagline actually added to this is the bomber to start from, so my guess is this is going to be the initial one which is in the Swedish tech tree. There's a lot of actually really interesting bombers at the early levels for many different nations. You get a little bit of a spice of life for everything in each of the different tech trees, which is really nice, ranging from stuff like the Hampton, then of course you have behemoths such as the Farman, the F2222, and then the NC2223, all of those massive machines, and of course the HE111s and the JU88s. There's a lot of really fun and interesting bombers at rank 1 and 2, and it's nice to see another one added to the pack in the form of the Saab B3C. The general history of this aircraft is definitely interesting. In 1934, the ideas at Sweden was that they wanted to expand their military program. They also wanted a machine which would be suitable for civilian service if and when needed. And what they decided to do was they wanted to keep their neutrality, meaning that they wanted to set up separate contracts looking at different areas of the world, and therefore what they did is they decided to take contracts for machines under, and also to create license-built machines from places such as North America and Germany. Therefore, they didn't favor one country or another. When it came to their medium bomber production, they focused on two specific companies, Junkers and Heinkel, and they created such machines such as the Ju-86 and also stuff like the HE-111. The HE-111 was seen as a very successful aircraft at the time of the mid-30s, and also was exemplary good in the military service aspect. But the Ju-86 actually became the more popular of the aircraft to be exported, and that is the vehicle that you're seeing right before you. The Saab B3C is a license-built version of the Ju-86, and this version that you see before you is the K2. The K2 is the version of the B3C, which was, of course, under the Junkers brand. So overall, with the addition of this to the Swedish military in the 30s, it was also used by other places such as countries in South America, many European countries, and even Asia and Oceania. So this Ju-86 was just used by pretty much everyone. Would be nice at some point to see a version in the German tech tree, but to see it in the Swedish tech tree I think is kind of nice. There was obviously differences between the Saab B3C and the Ju-86, but that mainly comes down to licensed components, stuff such as the addition of the specific engines. And according to the devblog, if we just scroll down a little bit, it talks about here kind of an interesting thing, and this is a little bit of a conflict that I found. I'm not sure which one is true because I've seen sources saying one thing and sources saying another, but it's basically down to the engines. So the B3C was powered by two NOHAB MY24 9-cylinder radial engines. These are license-built versions of the Bristol Pegasus 24 engine, and they had around about 900 horsepower each, so about 1800 horsepower. But I've also found sources looking at the specific C version of this, the B3C, which actually equipped it with Bristol Mercury engines, which were also Mercury 24s. So they gave around 980 horsepower each, so you would be gaining around about 200 horsepower, if not 160. Then you had the C2 variant, which was when they took B3As and 3Bs, which did have access to stuff like the earlier Mercury and earlier Pegasus engines, and changed them and retrofitted them to the better engines of the Mercury 24. So yeah, it would be nice to have some clarification on what is correct. Have already hit up the museum, which does have access to all of these records, so hopefully I can get some confirmation pretty soon. But the main thing to understand is this was powered by engines which could easily sustain its flight. The British engines used are, well, sorry, they're not British engines, but they're licensed built British engines. So, you know, they would have been completely fine. Another thing as well is this has access to 3 defensive turrets. You have one in the nose, you have one in the top ventral, and then you have one in the bottom of the aircraft as well, in what looks like an incredibly uncomfortable position that you can see in this picture. So you have, of course, the bottom turret, which is very reminiscent of a lot of bombers that we see at lower tiers. You have, of course, the front nose turret there, which is pretty much a ball, so it's able to move around a lot. And also the top turret, because you have this twin tail design on the back, which is actually really nice. So, you know, this right here, it means that all of these guns have really good coverage. So even though they're only 7.92s, Swedish built ones, so probably going to be labeled as 8mm, might be labeled as, you know, 7.92s, the main thing is the coverage on them should be insane. So no matter where you shoot at with this aircraft, it should be, you know, you should at least have some coverage when it comes to overall, you know, usefulness. Now let's talk about the bomb loads of this, because there's definitely a weird disproportionate amount of crazy bomb loads at low levels compared to the planes which, you know, are around there. There's a real problem at the bottom tiers where you have stuff like the Farman running around, which still has an insane bomb load and still can end games in 5 minutes, but people just seem not to care. Maybe not enough people play it, who knows? But if you compare that to the stuff that Japan has on offer, or the stuff that, you know, let's say somebody like I suppose the Soviets have on offer, unless they have something like a TB, you know, the unique vehicle, then what you get is a situation where you have certain sides such as Germany and France who are able to bomb out the enemies really quickly and end matches incredibly quickly, whereas you get other nations which that isn't the case. The question is, will the Swedish have that capability of winning the battles through bombing? And since this machine seems to carry at least up to 1,000 kilos worth of bombs, and it's also going to be the first bomber that we see in the tree, so we can definitely say it's either going to be between 1.0 and 2.0. My feeling is it will have that capability, and also it's going to have combinations of 250 and 50 kilo bombs on top of it. There's also this wonderful picture here that you can see where it has this massive torpedo, and it kind of reminds me of the Wellington, where the Wellington has access to a torpedo, and or to 2 torpedoes, I believe. But the problem is you have to go incredibly slow to use them and incredibly low. I hope that's not the case for this plane. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be a bit of a pain to be able to get it in there. But looking at the plane, you know, overall, it does look very serviceable, and it does look kind of fun. I just wish that there was after playing through pretty much every tech tree at a low level in the game, one thing that is constant is the issue with 1.0 to 2.0 battles. And what I mean by this is the bombers at those lower levels definitely play a huge part in winning those battles. And what happens is you have situations where these bombers are able to pretty much do whatever the hell they want, because the fighters cannot climb to them because of the general height that a lot of these bombers spawn. Stuff like the S-81, right? This is an Italian bomber which has really poor characteristics when it comes to its engines. It's really slow, takes ages to get around the place, but at the same time, it can always get to its bombing targets because of its BR. I feel the same thing is going to happen with this S-31, where, with this B3C, because it's not going to be contested while going into those action areas, because a lot of stuff, such as biplanes, such as other monoplanes, are not going to be able to climb to it. There are definitely options out there which can climb to them, you know, the CW-21, the HE-100, but a lot of people, including myself, agree that these planes should go up in BR are. And what I would actually do is I would lower the altitude spawn of machines such as the B3 and stuff like the Ju-88 and the Hu-111, so you have more of a mash of planes coming together instead of having situations where bombers can just kind of run rampant. Because when I look at this plane, what I can just kind of disregard by just looking at it is I know it's going to be able to stay in the air, right? It's pretty obvious that this machine is designed to stay in the air, meaning that it has enough power to be able to get to the target. It also has some pretty good bomb loads. We can see from this bomb drop, which is done in this coupe video here, that there is a lot of 50 kilos that it can hold, and it looks really nice dropping them. We also can tell that it's going to have okay coverage from the bottom from that one turret, which is going to keep it alive. So overall, we just from looking at this video, you know it's going to be a serviceable bomber, but at the same time you have that problem where, which isn't, you know, exclusive to this machine, it's exclusive to pretty much every other bomber at this level, where it can just do what it wants, and that is more of a gameplay problem than this bomber itself. Hopefully, you know, there is a change in the future to deal with this problem, so therefore there is more of an actual competitive aspect to it, instead of people just turning off their brains and bombing in these machines, using them as research pinatas to get down the tree. The first two devblogs so far that we've seen from the Swedish for update 1.95 have got me really interested, and I'm also very happy that they're focusing on lower tier stuff first. A lot of the time, you know, the first devblog for 1.93 was the KA50, so you know that was straight up there with the just kind of telling you what that update was about. But seeing these lower level devblogs, I suppose you would call them, and being able to talk about them, to me is a lot more interesting than something like a KA50. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyins Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.